Welcome into your practice, everybody. You've made it. You've done the hardest part. And I am titling this class, Finding the Strength When You're Being Stretched Too Thin. So we find ourselves in a season of the year where it's pretty common to feel a little bit too stretched. You have one too many things on your calendar, one too many people expecting you to bake something and bring it to a party or bring a white elephant gift or what have you. And maybe just feeling a little bit too stretched. The same thing actually also very frequently happens on the yoga mat, where we put a little bit too much attention on the flexibility and stretching side of things, and we underemphasize the importance of strength. So we're going to bring this idea of reconnecting with strength inside of the stretching poses throughout the practice today. And we're going to start on our backs and Supta Baddha Konasana. So you can lie on your spine, you can bring the soles of your feet together, knees wide. And this is a really nice way to start to send a message to the body that this is the kind of primary region of the body we're going to be focusing on today. So that inner thigh, groin, inner pelvic area is where we're going to be doing a lot of stretching, exploring what space we can create, but also finding where we can access strength from that part of the body as well. And just letting the back of the body fully surrender to the mat. I'm noticing it's taking me a little bit of time to let myself relax here. I have a lot of activity in my body, and you may be feeling the same thing. And so just let yourself know we're going to be here about 4 to 5 more rounds of breath. You may soften the palms of your hands. Let gravity do all the work in this shape. You don't need to push or strive for anything here. Just giving yourself 2 more breaths wherever you find your body in this shape. And then bring the hands to the outer thighs and use your hands to close the legs together like you're closing a book. You're going to keep your left foot down on the mat and start to hug your right knee in towards the chest, but immediately let your right knee slide out and up towards your right armpit. So it's kind of moved laterally and then up and in. Give yourself 1 more in-breath with a nice squeeze here. And then we're going to switch sides. Release the right foot down to the mat. Hug the left knee in towards the chest, but immediately let it slide out to the side and up towards that left armpit. Give it a nice big hug. And then release, left foot down to the mat. Once again, hug the right knee in, listening carefully. And I'm doing this as well if it helps you to have the visual. It's almost like a half happy baby pose as we flex the right foot, lift the foot to the ceiling. But this time you're going to clasp the inside of either the ankle or the heel, letting the top of the right thigh melt down. But your right thigh is at kind of a diagonal line to the right. My toes of my right foot are sort of pointed at that diagonal. And then I'm going to let myself switch sides, releasing my right foot down to the mat, drawing the left leg in, and same thing, let it move laterally and up towards the armpit. Then it's almost like you're coming into half happy baby, but you hold on to the inside of the ankle or the left heel, and then encourage that dropping down and in. As you take a couple of breaths here, the femur bone is the thigh bone, and we want to think of that being plugged in to the socket of the hip socket. Release the left foot down 1 more time each side, hug the right knee in, let it move laterally out and up. Find that half happy baby variation, holding the inside of the heel or the ankle, and then maybe explore partially straightening the right leg. It's unlikely that you can fully straighten it yet. We're still very early in the practice. Just feeling what sort of access do you have in the hamstring and groin. And then you can gently release, bring the right foot back down to the mat, switch sides for the final time. Left knee in, sliding laterally out and up, finding that half happy baby variation. And then exploring what it's like to just partially straighten and bend the leg a few times. We are working with Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana B pose, standing hand to big toe pose, as well as Vashisthasana 2. Release the left foot, hug both knees into the chest. You're going to rock and roll a few times. We're coming into a wide-kneed child's pose. So as you come up, roll over the legs, take your knees the width of your mat, and sit back into a wide-kneed child's. Extending the arms forward, letting the heart and the forehead melt towards the mat. There will be times in this practice where we really see how far we can safely stretch, but there will be lots of times where I encourage you, even at the edge of your stretch, to engage some strength, to bring the muscles into the pose. As you inhale, shift forward onto an all fours position. Bring your knees underneath you, tuck all 10 toes, and then we're going to start to glide forward and back. So as you glide back, the right knee is going to lift up and rotate out as you sit back. Shift back forward to all fours, and then we alternate. Left knee lifts and externally rotates, and shift forward. And continue just rocking forward and back with this external knee and thigh rotation. Again, still very early in the practice, just kind of priming the body for some of the things we're going to explore. Take one more with that right leg, and then as you shift forward, extended tabletop. Take your right leg behind you, parallel to the floor. You may like to keep the left toes tucked, or if it feels more comfortable, you could untuck them. And then when you feel stable, reach and elongate the left arm forward. Take a couple breaths there. Elongated table pose. And then begin to release the left hand down next to the right. Sweep the right leg laterally out and forward. Let it lower down onto the floor. Toes are pointed straight ahead. And then sit back into a hybrid. It's like a half child's pose, half side split. Enjoying all that sensation in the right inner thigh, keeping the arms active. If you want a little bit more, maybe straighten the right knee a little bit more, activating that right leg. You might get a little bit more sensation. You're going to shift forward onto all fours and see if you can slide your right leg forward so it's in line with your hands. Tuck your left toes, lift your left knee. You're in kind of a funky plank position here. Take a couple of breaths. You've got kind of a different sort of tripod stance with that right leg. And then we'll chaturanga all the way down to the floor. So bending the elbows straight back, lowering the torso all the way down. Sphinx arms, sliding the forearms forward, finding that Sphinx back bend in the spine. And then push the forearms down into the mat and pull the elbows back towards the ribs. I'm going to give you two more things to work with here. I want you to lift your left knee away from the mat. Another way to think of that is pushing the top of your left foot down into the mat. And then lift your navel up and away. So you lift the lower abdomen slightly. Bend your right knee at a 90-degree angle. We're going to come into Jatara Parivartanasana, reclined spinal twist. Thread your left arm underneath your right. Roll over your left side body, finding a full spinal twist here. Reaching that right arm back and behind you. One more nice deep belly breath here. We're going to come into Anantasana, side reclining leg lift. Bend your left elbow. Roll slightly onto your left side body and cradle the left side of your head with your hand. Lift your right knee towards the ceiling. Take your peace fingers of your right hand and loop them around your right big toe. Now, before you extend, look down at your left leg. We don't want the body to be into a tented or a V shape. We want a nice straight line from the left heel to the left elbow. And then keeping that, we start to extend the right leg up towards the ceiling. One of the things that's really natural to happen here is the right hip, the right side of the buttocks likes to drift back behind you. It's easier. See if you can engage the right glute and draw the right hip forward so the right hip is stacked over the left. So on the front side of the inner thigh and the groin, we have a stretch. And then on the back of the glutes, we have a nice engagement. One more in-breath here. Release that right foot, roll onto the belly, 3 cobra poses, palms underneath your shoulders. Inhale, rippling up through the vertebra of the spine, nice big back bend. Exhale, rippling down out of the back bend. 2 more just like that. Inhale, rippling up. Exhale, rolling down. 1 more time, rolling up into cobra. Rolling down. First downward facing dog of the practice. Shift up to all fours. Tuck your toes. Lift the hips like a nice big upside down V shape. This is your first down dog. Let it be conversational. You could walk the heels out. If you're like me, starting to feel warm, maybe shedding a layer of clothing. And then we'll be taking that entire warm-up sequence on the second side. So give yourself 1 more in-breath in your downward facing dog. As you take your out-breath, let the knees settle down onto the mat. We start that forward and back rocking movement, lifting one knee and externally rotating. Rocking forward all fours, and then rocking back, alternating that external rotation. So in almost every yoga pose, on the part of the body that's stretching, you've got elongation. On the opposite side of the body, there tends to be contraction and engagement. So we'll revisit that a number of times. Now the next time you take that left knee out, that's going to end this rocking forward and back. We're going to find our elongated table. So take the left leg, reach it back parallel to the floor. Maybe untuck the right toes if that feels more stable. When you're ready, experimenting with reaching the right arm forward. 2 full breaths here. 1 more in-breath. I'm going to spin around so that I don't kick my wall. So right hand comes to the floor, sweep your left leg out and forward, lower it down onto the floor, and then this hybrid child's pose side split as you drop the hips back, keep reaching the arms forward, melt the head and the heart. And we have a whole practice to explore this region of the body. So we don't need to overdo the stretching right away. Just a little bit at a time is more than enough. Coming into strength here, shift forward. Slide your left leg forward so it's in line with the hands. Tuck the right toes. Find your plank pose. Take a couple breaths here. Just feeling how this is different. The distribution of the body weight is a little different here. And then chaturanga all the way to the mat. Arms are going to slide forward onto the forearms, finding that sphinx position. And then activate your sphinx so the forearms push down and pull back. My right knee is lifting away from the mat. And my belly button is just lifting and drawing away from the mat as well. 1 more inhale. Recline spinal twist. Bend your left knee. Thread the right arm underneath the left. Rolling over the right side body. Reaching the left arm behind you. So recruiting the muscles in the yoga practice, reintegrating some strength alongside the stretching is really a way to protect our physical boundaries so we don't cause harm. Anantasana, bend your right elbow, cradle the right side of your head. You're finding that straight line from your right foot to your right elbow, and then lift the left knee. You take your peace fingers around the big toe, and then start to reach that left heel up. And it doesn't have to be fully straight if the hamstring's not ready for that. Notice if the left hip is dipping back, engage the left glute to draw the left hip forward. Yes. One more nice big breath in, and then we'll take those 3 cobras again. So you release the left leg, roll to the belly, palms underneath the front of the shoulders. Inhale, rolling up, Bhujangasana. And rolling down. And 2 more. And rolling down. Last one. And rolling down. And downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. But we know, of course, that our yoga mat is really where we experiment with a lot of these mindfulness concepts, but ultimately we want to try and take them off the mat. So what does it look like to recruit some strength when you're being stretched too thin? Maybe that looks like turning down an invitation to another event. Maybe it looks like buying a store-bought item instead of making it from scratch. Let's start to move into the sun salutation portion of the practice. Look to the front of the mat, walking the feet forward to the back of the wrists, finding your first true Uttanasana. Fingertips to shins. Inhale, lift up halfway. And fold in. Sweep the arms out and all the way up. Hands into heart center. We're going to do 2 half salutations, nice and simple. Sweep those arms wide and up. Fold over the legs. Inhale, half lift. And release. Rising up, mountain. Hands to heart center. One more, just like that. You know what you're doing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, long spine. Exhale, head heavy. Inhale, ground through the feet to rise up through the spine. Exhale, hands to heart. 3 lunge salutation, movement to breath, nothing added in, just straight classic sun salutations. Release the arms alongside you, take a big breath in. Exhale, palms of the hands together, position 1. 2, reaching arms forward, up and back. 3, folding over the legs. Lead with the left foot, step it back, melt and drop the left knee down. Maybe sweep the arms up on the inhale. You don't have to lift the arms. Exhale, bring it back, position 5, down dog. Either knees, chest, and chin, which is what I'm going to do, or if you're ready for plank through chaturanga, you could take it. Flowing forward, either cobra, which is what I'm doing, or up dog, and back to down dog, position 8. Nice controlled step forward, left foot forward, right knee down. As you inhale, arms could stay down like I'm doing, or they could lift. Exhale, hands down, step right foot forward to meet the left. 10. Arms reach forward, up and back. 11. Close it out. 12. Release the arms, breathing in. Palms together. 1. Forward, up and back. 2. Folding. 3. Right foot will lead. Step it back. Lower the knee. Inhale. Exhale, down dog. Either knees, chest, and chin, or plank through chaturanga. Back bend of choice, cobra or up dog, down dog. Right foot forward, left knee down, in breath here. Out breath, hands down, left foot forward, fold. Rising up, mountain. Prayer position 12. Last round, I'm just going to call the numbers. Release the arms. Take your in-breath. Palms together. 1, 2, 3. Left foot will lead. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Left foot forward. 9. Right foot forward. 10. 11. 12. Release the arms, close the eyes. Take a moment, checking in. Knowing that in the practice of yoga, we are never looking for extremes. So welcoming in the strength when we're being stretched too far is really a practice of returning to balance. We're going to blink open the eyes. This is a great time for a sip of water if you need to adjust your clothing in any way. We're going to set up for our longer standing sequence. This sequence, somewhat uniquely, is going to start in the middle of your mat, facing the long edge. So you can turn, so your left shoulder is facing the front of your mat. And then your toes are facing what would be the right long edge. I'll say that one more time. Left shoulder facing the front of the mat, toes are facing the right long edge. Okay. We're only going to do the sequence one time through. I know sometimes we do twice through, but I want to get us in the shapes and stay there for several breaths each time. Okay. I'm going to take my feet about hip distance apart because we start with a pretty big pose. We're going to have our left leg as the standing leg as we start to build Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana B, which is hand to big toe pose, the B version. Start to lift your right knee up, find your balance. Just like we did in our opening warm-up, let that knee drift laterally and then up a little bit. Reach down and either hold the inside of the ankle or the inside of the right heel. Stand up, let your right femur drop into the socket, and then start to explore extending the right leg. You could reach your left arm down, you could keep it on your waist, or you could reach it up. We're here for 3, for 2. Now you're going to come into falling star pose. So you're going to bend your right knee, then both of your arms are going to reach diagonally to the left, right leg reaches down diagonally to the right, and you lean a little bit, exploring how far you can tilt while still maintaining your balance. Taking this into classic star pose, step your right foot out, widen your left foot, take a big breath, taking up all your space in star pose, then forward folding, hands to the floor, head towards the mat, Prasarita Padottanasana. Take a couple of breaths, letting the spine kind of decompress. You could sway, you could move, anything that feels intuitive and yummy here, welcome that. Don't overthink it. If it feels good, do it. Now we're going to come into a little bit more structured pose for a longer hold. So walk your hands out in front of you so they're right underneath your line of sight. Turn your left toes out about 60 degrees. Take your left hand right in the middle of your line of sight. Sweep your right arm up towards the ceiling. Turn your torso towards the back of your mat, turning to the right, and twist. Now for these first few breaths, try to keep your pelvis as flat as possible. So if you think of your hip points like headlights, Both of the headlights of the pelvis are still pointed relatively down towards the mat. Take one more inhale here, and the next time you exhale, I want you to let your left hip point drop towards the mat. And it's only going to look microscopic, but you're going to feel a lot more of a stretch in that left inner thigh. One more big breath here. Really, really nice. Release the twist. Right arm comes down to the mat. You're going to keep walking your hands to the left towards that front left foot. You're going to fully rotate those left toes to face the front of your mat. Trikonasana with a big toe bind. Take your left peace fingers, loop them around your big toe. This is like an Ashtanga version of triangle pose. Right arm sweeps up towards the ceiling. You're in your triangle pose with your big toe bind. So it's a little bit shorter stance. Same classic pose, just a few nuances. As you take a few breaths here, I want you to think of hugging your left heel towards your right arch. Almost like you were going to squinch your mat together. One more breath. Lift up to warrior two pose. Soften that left knee. Lift the torso. You might broaden the stance as you see me doing here, landing in your warrior two. Very similarly, I want you to think of that front heel pulling towards that back arch. So there's an awakened feeling on the whole underside of the pose. Now take your left hand to the inside of your left knee, side angle with a little bit of a twist. You're going to slide down, and as you slide down into your side angle, I want you to use that left arm to push back into your left knee, but then your left knee is like, you're not going to take advantage of me. So your left knee is going to push back into that left arm a little bit. So there's a synergy happening of the arm and the inner knee pressing against each other. And you'll feel your left groin kind of wake up. One more full breath here. You're like, stop talking, this is hard. Yeah, lift back up to warrior two. Really, really nice. Straighten your left leg. Prasarita Padottanasana again. Turn your feet parallel. Inhale, you're in that star. Exhale, fold back forward. We're going to move into Samakonasana. Sama means same angle pose. In short, this is everybody's favorite side split pose. Okay? So you're going to wiggle your feet out, maybe 1 foot's length, and then pause for a minute. I want you to think of pulling your mat together, squeeze your feet towards each other. Now act like you're going to rip your mat in half and push your feet apart. You're going to do that 2 more times. Maybe widen your feet a little more, and then squeeze together. Whew. And then push apart. 1 more time. Maybe you widen a little more. Maybe you come to the forearms. Pull together. Feel your inner thighs wake up. And then push apart. You're going to heel toe coming into Malasana. So palms can come back onto the mat. Heel toe. And then drop the hips and sink into your Malasana. Take a moment, settle the breath. Let your weight shift slightly to the left foot. Use your right hand and push your right knee away. Alternating sides. Shift the weight to the right. Left hand pushes that left knee away. And just alternate at your own pace. We're going to go for about 30 seconds. Just a little press and release from side to side. So there are moments in this practice where I'm being pretty prescriptive about how I want you to think about the work. But there are other moments that's just like, kind of just be with your body in a way that makes sense. Okay, just about 1 or 2 more breaths here. We're going to bring this into skater's pose at the back of the mat. So my right knee is going to stay bent. My left leg is going to start to straighten towards the front of the mat. Now you could take a high skater if you want to kind of take a higher version, or you could keep it really low towards the ground. We're going to be here for 3 breaths. You could keep the hands down, or maybe play with the balance here. 2. One more nice slow inhale. We are coming to a seated position. So you lower the pelvis all the way to the mat. And then if there's any issues with the knee, take a half butterfly. If your knee and ankle are okay, you're gonna do an internal rotation of the knee and the ankle. So deciding what makes the most sense for those joints, okay? Option to take your left hand, this looks harder than it is, thread it underneath and find your right heel, and then right arm either reaching up and over or maybe finding the left toes. Create a little window for your face. Nice, big, beautiful breaths through the right side body. One more breath here. And we're gonna sweep up and out of that lateral bend, unravel the left arm if it was underneath your pelvis, and then reflip that right leg. See if you can use the strength of your legs to rock forward back into that Skandasana. No judgment if you need to use your hands there, okay? Back into Warrior Two. Big press up and open. Yeah, strong through those legs. And then last pose in the sequence. You may want to watch if you're not familiar. You're going to windmill the right arm down, side plank. You could either step the left foot up, you could hover, or you could take your big toe bind and take your big toe extension. So taking your side plank, you're here for 3, for 2. Last in breath. Moving through Vinyasa, plank, chaturanga, up dog, down dog. If your hands need a break, by all means take a wide-kneed child's pose. And even in this downward facing dog, we have the heels that are melting towards the mat. There's a sense of release in the back of the legs, down through the Achilles. But on the front side of the legs, the kneecaps are lifting up. The quadriceps are hugging the femur bone. So there's an opening and a stretching on one side of the body, but there's an engagement and a strengthening on the other side of the body, creating balance. Lift your head, look to the middle of the mat. Just walk your feet to the center of your mat. We'll take a little half salutation to lift up. So inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold in. Circle sweep the arms out and all the way up. Hands into heart center. You could do a little military pivot to face the long edge of your mat. You're gonna have your right shoulder facing the front of your mat now. Your toes are facing that left long edge, okay? I'm just facing the same way because I don't want to talk to the wall the whole time. I'd much rather talk to you all. Okay, so we start that whole sequence on the second side. Looking down, you've got that firm foundation in the legs and the feet. Right leg is going to be the standing leg. We start with a big, powerful pose. Left knee floats up, find your balance. Let that left knee float out and in, and then reach down to either the inside of the ankle or the heel. As you stand up, feel the femur dropping into the hip socket, and then start to play with extension. So you'll notice my toes are actually pointed almost behind me. Reaching the arm, 3, 2. Moving into that falling star, soften the knee. Both arms reach diagonally up to the right. Left leg moves down diagonally to the left. Stepping wide into star pose, taking the feet really wide base, big inhale, folding Prasarita Padottanasana, hands down to the mat. Take a few breaths, just hang. If you want to sway, if you want to roll the neck or the shoulders, one of those moments in the practice that is not overly instructive. And we're going to start to build towards that heart like a wheel pose. So I'm going to straighten my arms, walk my hands forward. This time I'm turning my right toes out about 60 degrees. Right hand comes right into the middle of my line of sight. My headlights, my hip points are both pointed approximately down to the mat as I start to move into my twist, left arm to ceiling, torso revolving to the left. And for a couple more breaths, I'm trying to keep my pelvis relatively pointed or relatively kind of flat across. Give yourself one more in-breath. And then as you exhale, really let the right side of the pelvis dip down and in. And enjoy the introduction of all that sensation on the right side of the groin. One more breath, maybe push down through the right palm a little bit more. Exhale, releasing that twist. Hands are going to keep walking to the right as we prepare for that Trikonasana with my right peace fingers around my right big toe. Left arm up towards the ceiling. So if you've ever taken an Ashtanga yoga class, this is how they practice Trikonasana. A little bit shorter base, adding in that toe bind. Feeling that front right heel pull towards the back arch. Lifting up and opening into Warrior Two. Lift the torso. You're probably going to need to widen your stance here a little bit. Arms parallel to the floor. And then it's the same action. The front heel is kind of squeezing. It's like a Hulk sort of an action towards that back arch. Side angle, that right hand, the back of it, comes inside my right knee, and I start to glide down. And there's this kind of push and pull action of that right hand pushing back into the right knee, but the right knee is giving it right back, pushing back into the arm. So you're not dumping in the joints, you're not taking it too far. This is really strong and active. Last breath here. Inhale, lifting up. Take a star pose. Feet move back to parallel. Exhale, hands back down to the mat, Samakonasana. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you can repeat what we did round one, where you just work on that side split. If you are someone that knows, you've practiced with me for a while, you know there's an arm balance opportunity here, and that's what I'm going to introduce if you want to work with that. So bring the hands closer together. My thumbs are almost touching. I start to widen my feet into my Samakonasana, and then I bend my elbows and bring my triceps and elbows onto the front of my abdomen. I lean forward, engage my glutes and lower back, and see if I can lift my legs. You can also bring the big toes together here. And then coming back out, we're going to drop back into Malasana. So heel toe the feet in. Drop back into our Malasana. So I've done this a couple of times in classes. I recently saw a meme that described this as Malasana knee hot potato, which I think is pretty apropos. So from this position, hands come up into heart center. You drop a knee down and tap, and then open back up, and then tap and open back up. So you're alternating. It's very similar to what we did when we were on all fours. It's just now a heck of a lot harder because we're in Malasana. Keep going. I'm watching my clock. We got about 10 more seconds. And you don't have to tap it all the way. This is like crazy hip rotation, about one more each side. Last time, Uttanasana, hands down, straighten the legs. Give it a moment to let the knees get a rest. And then you're moving into Skandasana at the back of the mat. So left knee's gonna bend, right leg is straight. Again, you could keep a high skater's pose as I'm doing now, or you could drop it down and low. I'm gonna keep it high this side. Couple more breaths. We get to bring it all the way down to the floor, lowering the pelvis down, and either taking Janu Shirshasana if that's a happier place for knees and ankles, or internal rotation. If you're taking the arm back, the kind of arm bind, the arm comes underneath the pelvis, finds the left heel, and the left arm either reaches diagonally or maybe it finds that right foot. Got that kind of window frame for the head. Ooh, nice big breath, lifting all the way up. Seeing if we can transition back into skaters, flipping that left foot around, and then powering forward. Last press here. Up and open, warrior two. At the front of your mat. And then last big pose of the sequence, Vashisthasana, left hand to the mat. Either side plank, floating that right leg, or big toe bind for Vashisthasana 2. For 3 breaths. For 2 breaths. And final Vinyasa, flowing it out. Up dog, everybody to child's pose, hips to heels. Lifting the torso, bring your hips in the middle of your mat. Upavishta Konasana, take those legs nice and wide. A familiar place for the body at this point in the practice. I'm going to do a little side bend first. So we're going to turn the entire torso to face the left leg, one hand on either side. You can use your fingertips to really turn the heart towards the left toes, and then walk yourself forward. And notice my right hip almost immediately pops up. That's a-okay. You don't need to resist that. Let the torso and the head hang down. Maybe getting a nice bit of sensation in that lower right quadrant of the back. And then slowly walking up and in. Let yourself drift back to center. Pause for a moment. Just take a breath. And we'll move to the other side, turning the torso to the right. And when you're ready, walking forward and in. So there is sort of a myth about yoga that it's all about flexibility, all about getting deeper and deeper into the stretches. But that is a myth because the true practice of yoga always balances the stretching with the strength. We're never collapsing into the body or letting it go too far. That would actually take us into an injurious place. Start to walk the hands in. Let the torso float back to center. Pause. And the final forward fold, walking the hands forward, finding that medium spot where you can hang out for about 5 to 7 breaths. And in yoga, the real practice is identifying when we've gone too far and need to back out, or need to welcome in a prop for more support. And when we need to engage a muscle to help protect the body. You have to have those same skill sets off the mat as well, knowing when we've been stretched too thin, when we need to ask for support, or when we may need to just say no. And start to walk the hands up and in. We'll come back into Shavasana with the offering for that to look like Supta Baddha Konasana, which would bookend the practice the same way we started. If that feels like a place the body doesn't want to be anymore, you could take just a traditional Shavasana. But it may be interesting to see how the body feels in this shape 45 minutes later. As you take the next minute to just rest and be with yourself, breathing in this remembrance of your own strength, of your own capacity to support and protect yourself. Breathing out your capacity to be fluid and flexible and open to change. Breathing in, aware that you have the capacity for strength and structure and boundaries. And breathing out, knowing you also have the capacity for fluidity, flexibility, and change. If you have more time for Shavasana and you'd like to stay here, you're welcome to turn off the video and stay here for as long as you like. If this is the time you set aside for practice, you can start to reawaken the body with gentle movement. You can start to make your way very gently back up to a comfortable seated position to close the practice. We'll bring the palms of the hands together, which in and of itself is a gesture of that balance, the body and the mind coming together. We ask that the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Victory to all of our practices.